Good afternoon. It's Joyful Hermit. I get this out of there. I uh, went to the eye doctor this morning and had an interesting conversation a little bit with the ophthalmologist. Got glaucoma. Also have something in my eye since then. So, and the assistant overdilated my eyes. So it's, I don't know. I just feel strange today. It might not be the eyes. It might be my neck. I had physical therapy also, and I even slept last night, but I'm exhausted and everything feels spatially disoriented to me. It's very strange. But the ophthalmologist was talking about pain and how the body actually produces the sensations of the pain, um, sort of in the form of, I forget what term he used, but he was thinking how steroids would help with pain, but of course it causes other damages to the body if you take it over time. But I did get a Medrol dose pack of steroid that the physical therapist said should really help at least tone down the pain of the arm and the shoulder and the hand that gets such nerve pain for the last 3 weeks and had been keeping me awake at night. Last night, not so much until maybe 4 in the morning, but and then I did fall back asleep. But maybe it's the anemia. I'm just worn out. And I didn't also realize the pain doctor mentioned that Dilaudid is actually stronger than morphine, but that's hard. I don't know. My pain doctor hasn't said that, but it does act faster. It will act faster and it reacts with certain people very strongly, but it certainly hasn't with me, which is strange. But anyway, we were also talking about the persecution that people get if you have to take opioids. At first, even one of the persons with the doctor was, the ophthalmologist was, oh, because that's what you all hear. We all hear it from the media. It's the government message of extremism against pain meds, opioids. When, as the ophthalmologist pointed out, sadly, that's all that will help moderate pain in some people. And I'm one of those persons. But I had written in the comments this terrible situation at the dog park the other night. Well, it wasn't terrible to anyone but me, and to the man who was talking with me. He helped me get the video of when I was talking about telekinesthetic tactile prayer onto my site, but then it went to this other site that I accidentally some years ago must have created. So when I do a phone video, it goes to that site and not my regular site. And then I can't figure out how to get those videos, those lost 22, over to this site. And a couple of viewers tried to help, but I guess I'm just not well enough to be able to do it. I have too much going on, like in my neck, causing my head. I can't factor well. My intellect can't work properly, and it hasn't ever been good with technology. But I've looked up things online, and it literally is like Greek to me. And I took Greek at a college, and I dropped out. This was after I was older. I was just taking it for enjoyment, and I'm obtuse to it. It was like my mind couldn't function with it as I can with other things. It was strange, but and I was in with younger people, and I didn't want to. I was on visitor status. I didn't want to take up the professor's time either, but it wasn't the enjoyment that I was looking for as far as learning it. So instead, I took a class on Isaiah that was good. That was something that I could absorb eagerly and readily. But anyway, it's interesting about the pain and the attitude toward opioids. So I wrote in a comment, or no, I guess it was in something I sent out to everyone who subscribed, and more people dropped off because maybe that was offensive. But explaining the good of opioids, and they are not dangerous at all if you have severe, legitimate pain, genuine pain. Mayo Clinic site explains it best of any that I have found, that the opioid goes to work on the areas of pain. It's absorbed by the body and functions for what it works best at, and that is tamping down pain. Except if you have an addictive personality, that can even be you are prone to gambling addiction or cigarette smoking or drinking or shopping addiction or any numbers of eating addiction. If you are an addictive personality, even if you have genuine pain, you can become addicted. But otherwise, you don't. I'm blessed not to have an addictive personality. So I will never be addicted. Now, Mayo Clinic explains you become dependent. It's just as a diabetic is dependent on insulin. Or we all are dependent upon oxygen. If we don't have oxygen, we'll die. If we don't have air to breathe, we'll die. So, but that doesn't mean we're addicted to air. We're dependent on it in order to function. And someone with intractable high-level pain is dependent on what will, like the ophthalmologist said, unfortunately, or fortunately, since we have opioids available, they're natural. Most of them are natural. Well, opium came from poppy seeds, but now much of it is chemical, also chemical opioids, but that's what works for a certain segment of people with pain. And they've come up with other medications like gabapentin, Lyrica, Neurontin. I've tried them all. My pain doctors had me tried everything. And over the years, other doctors would have me try anything new that came out. Tramadol. Oh my goodness. Well, that's known as the devil drug. That is highly addictive. And the problem with that one is, and it's a chemical one, and it came out several years ago and was advertised by the maker of it that it was not addictive. So some pain doctor back in the Midwest put me on it. And then I read online, oh yes, it is very addictive. The problem is if you ever have to go off it, you will have horrific withdrawals. So people who had been on it and had to go off for side effect reasons were warning, don't get on it, it's not worth it. Well, after 5 days, I had seizures from it. Some of these other drugs have terrible side effects. The worst that an opioid has, unless you're an addictive person and don't need it, and you'll become addicted. That's a guarantee there. If you don't have the pain or high enough pain, and you're taking it because you can't cope with life or you want to get high, and that's another signal that if you don't need it, if you don't have bad pain, you will feel a high from the medicine. I have never felt a high. All I feel is pain. I still have pain. It's never not enough opioids unless they would knock me out. I would still feel pain and have it because the pain is high. It's high level pain. But the opioids, have toned it down enough that I can function, sort of. Not today real well, but I'm at least not out of my mind crazy with pain. I'm not sobbing. I'm not suicidal. I can communicate and think. So for me, I praise God that I finally was able to get on pain medication. But trying these other medications, it was these side effects that are so bad. And they didn't work. They didn't help the pain in me. Lyrica did nothing. Gabapentin did nothing for the pain, but they wired me. I felt jittery and as I was bouncing off walls on those. I had to go off just because on I think it was the gabapentin it was, and the Neurontin. I felt like I was climbing walls with Neurontin. I just felt jittery and jangled, all jangled up, and everything was out of sorts and out of whack. It was a real nasty feeling. And I don't feel anything with opioids except the pain is lessened. It's tamped down. And so, anyway, I wrote about that, but there is much bigotry, and people can get actually kind of mean and vicious if they find out you're on pain meds because of this message that's gone out. Public media and the indoctrination of how horrible are pain meds and how terrible to take them and to be on them and no one should and all that. This man at the dog park, he looked at me differently and he changed and he left. He didn't want to talk anymore. He didn't want to communicate. And it was like he couldn't get away fast enough because I was on pain meds. And when I mentioned the kind that he was saying, especially this one, it's terrible, it's terrible. And I said, that's one I'm grateful for. Oh, no, and he got his dog and out they went. He viewed me suddenly very differently. So I realized that it was sort of a blessing in a way to feel that negative bias of being and on something that people are very much against. And it helped me understand how people with other problems can be very persecuted. So it's an interesting situation, and it is too bad that we have to be on anything at all, pain med or otherwise. It's too bad that there's suffering in the world. But my main thought or sort of point for this video is the whole topic of pain and the power of pain. Way back when I was working on my doctorate in clinical psychology, which I did not finish. I could have finished the actual doctorate, but I could not do my clinical intern counseling hours because I kept having pain sieges and then I couldn't meet with my clients. You have intern hours. And they know that they're with someone who doesn't have their credential yet, but you have to do so many hours of counseling with clients, with patients first before you can move on in your degree and get licensed also. And it's a lot of hours, but I couldn't do it because of my pain, and I wasn't able then to meet with clients who needed me, and I didn't know how long I'd be laid up with a pain siege. So it was thought that it was, that the career wasn't going to work out for me because you have to be available for your clients when they need. And with my own pain, I couldn't. But there is great pain and power, great power in pain. and positive power. My dissertation and my life work, when I was working on that doctorate back in 1988, it was, started I think in 87 and into 88, the end of 87. And that was to help people handle pain, live with pain through spiritual means. I had a dissertation mapped out, outlined, and everything to help people with pain through higher levels of spirituality, of Christianity, or other religions even. I wasn't going to be one to expect people to be as I was when it came to the pain. If something in me helped them come to Christ, fine. But I had this desire to help people with pain through understanding its positive power and energy to do much good in our lives and in the lives of others. So I couldn't follow through with that, but today and yesterday I just got this desire to not let that drop. And I thought, here are all of you all. Well, everyone's going to suffer, and some of us suffer a lot. People who have been writing and leaving comments or watching videos, you suffer tremendously. But we haven't really discussed, I don't think, adequately anyway, the literal and tangible energy that is in pain and in suffering. Not just physical pain, but emotional, psychological, and mental suffering, and spiritual suffering also. So pray for me about this. I would like to, if God could help, find access to suffering and bridges into the temporal and bridges into the spiritual that utilizes suffering in the positive gift that it is, in the way that God knows it is, and the way God utilized it. He utilizes it now, but with himself, with his own Son, with the second person of the Trinity. God utilized suffering on the cross and death and all the persecution Jesus had on earth. We can't just think of it as his being on the tangible cross for 3 hours approximately, or the beating and the stripping and the humiliations and being spit upon and the crown of thorns pressed into his head and being whipped and his clothes stripped from him and being whipped and derided and mocked and laughed at, and then publicly displayed nearly naked and dying that way. We cannot eliminate all the 3 years of public ministry, and toward the end of it being stalked with the intention of wanting to capture and kill him, and the pain of being betrayed by Judas. And then we can't really forget all his years growing up as an infant, toddler, little boy, adolescent, teenage, and young adult. And the kind of suffering it was for God to be in human form and to live in the temporal. I've mentioned they call them near-death experiences. I don't know why near death, because you're dead. I would maybe call it temporarily dead, a temporary death experience. Um, but whatever, no one's asked me what to label that experience. But the joy and the freedom and the ease of not having a body, but having everything else, having your soul, your mind, your heart, your feelings, in other words, your emotions, your memories, your understanding, your inner senses that become the senses you use then. You see without physical eyes, but you see everything. You hear, you speak through thought flashing, instantaneous. You move about rapid. I mean, like probably the speed of light or something. It's everything is effortless, and and it's just it's all the joy and the love. And so people, and I was this, if you're sent back, they most generally all go through a period of a kind of depression. And I was very, very happy with anticipation of rearing my children, and realized and knowing with assurance that it was God who sent me back, because I couldn't agree that I would go back. He asked me again after showing my children to me, and my very angry in the picture he showed me, not picture but the image of my former husband. He was beet red, face puffed up. It's just his head, like a head photo. But he was moving and stuff, but angry, and all face was all screwed up with anger, and red, beet red. And I knew it wouldn't be good for my children, but where I was so wonderful that I still couldn't say I would go back. The most I could say to God in response when he asked me yet again, do you want to go on with me or go back, was I finally said, I'll do whatever you want. I said that to God. And immediately he says, I'm sending you back to rear your children and fulfill your mission. So now's my mission time. And I'm understanding more and more it has to do with helping with suffering, and at my own level where I am with it, in various ways to learn and grow in the gift that it is, to understand it and view it and feel it, sense it as God does, because suffering is love. I was told by Michael Archangel, love to suffer and suffer to love. And the Virgin Mary told me when I was seeking Jesus, I felt Jesus had abandoned me at one point. Well, many points. That comes with spiritual growth. It's dark night of the soul. And it can also be dark night of the senses, where you feel as if you've been abandoned by God. And I was literally calling out, where are you, Jesus? Why have you left me? Why have you left me? Please come back. And Mary spoke and said, you will find him in your pain. But it's a matter of my human self remembering all these things. When I'm in the midst of terrible pain or frustration, like today, I wanted to be able to do some things, because the yard, everything is getting on top of me rather than me on top of it. There's pots that need watering, and I am going to do that after I talk this brief message. But I really feel like God wants me to continue with that dream I had. It wasn't a literal dream, but that inner desire dream of that clinical psychology doctorate thesis of helping people to utilize pain as the power and energy and source of good, of positive that it is, the gift that it is. And to utilize it not only with others and in the temporal world, but also as a means of spiritual growth and spiritual enlightenment, of a greater, I guess I like these words better, greater spiritual understanding and growth. Coming to union with God in love, all aspects of love. And one of the greatest aspects of love is through suffering and sacrifice. And what that means and why. Why suffering? Well, as Jesus exemplifies, it works. It works. It did. It repairs for sin, and it saves souls. Suffering in Christ, suffering in the hands of God, suffering in the mind and heart and soul of God, given to him by us, willingly offered back. Share our gift. Praise God for the gift of suffering given us with the full understanding and grasp of the positive power of it, of the healing, of all it can do to uplift the world, uplift souls, cleanse the world, uplift. And for right now, I know these are just words and concepts, but to come to the reality of the understanding, and then live it. Live it not in our temporal lives only, but live it in a way that it will be, it's heavenly also. And we're told, there'll be no trials, no tears, and all that on the other side. I don't know, because God's view is that it's not bad. It's a gift, it's a tool. Tools are conveniences, tools are helpmates. Tools provide progress in something. A surgeon's tools, a surgeon's scalpel can create wondrous healing and fix bodily things, So suffering is a tool and a gift. So and I think to help us to understand and to live it though, and I start with myself on this, and I've struggled with it off and on because it has been a struggle. I want it to become not a struggle, but a joy, and as easy as it was to move about when dead, when we're in heaven. I want it to become heavenly, because it is. I want to understand it and to grasp it for its reality and to utilize it. I wonder if those who are given the gift of healing, like Padre Pio had, that often people who suffer greatly have that gift of healing. I wonder if there's some correlation with it. They came to an understanding, a supernatural understanding of the supernatural qualities of suffering as love, that suffering became interchangeable with love and in union with love. So I want to explore this more, and not just explore, but to come to find the truths, the truth, beauty, and goodness of suffering. So I'll leave it at that on this thought and this topic. And today I once again decided that, especially after posting some of these lost videos that I'd somehow gotten on some other channel that I somehow had created without realizing it, but they span over 9 or 10 years ago, and just to see my facial change from suffering, it's the suffering that I don't even look like the same person, I don't think, or barely. And especially after last June, I had that knee replacement surgery. And I remember distinctly the morning my neighbor came over she was doing the ice pump for me, checking on me, errands, bringing me food to eat, helping me, bless her heart. And I did pay her. She didn't want to take pay, but I said, no, I have no one else. And God brought her to the door, wondering. She saw no cars here, no activity, and wondered what had happened and she came in and found me in bed in the bedroom just 3 days after the surgery, or 4 days it was, obviously unable to fend for myself whatsoever. God brought her because I didn't know what I was going to do. I needed help. And so, I remember that morning looking up at her and saying, something has changed in me. Something has shifted in a major way, has really shifted. Well, what do you mean? I said, something bodily even has changed and is never going to be the same again. I said, I can feel it. I can feel it. I could tell it shifted. And sure enough, and from that point on, there were a couple of videos after that knee surgery that were in the last 10 months done, and I had even more change in appearance then. And even the way I spoke has changed. I think it's the truth of pain. Pain did that. Pain has that power to transform us. To transform us. And I don't know if my soul has changed. As for the better, maybe? Perhaps. I'll have to think on that. But my outer definitely aged a lot, and even the features. My eyes are sunken more, and definitely lost weight, and I can't seem to gain weight. And I have no appetite whatsoever. None. I have to force myself to eat, even in the morning. Everything now is forced of my physical. And there's probably some spiritual message in that. And I feel it's probably a good thing because the temporal is, a lot of our temporal life is not natural in a way. Spiritually, it's not spiritual. And maybe God's showing me the transition that we will have. And what is natural of the world retains beauty, truth, and goodness. I'm looking out at the roses and the trees and the clouds and the breeze and the water, and that retains its beauty and its natural and spiritual effects. But we alter, and living creatures alter, and plants do alter, but they rejuvenate. But eventually, like Japanese maples, they have a lifespan, and generally a lot shorter than other trees, than regular maples. But water, for example, or sand, but it's a creation of nature. It's stones that have worn down. Certain aspects, fire and things, the elements, fire, water, air, they retain temporal and spiritual truth, beauty, and goodness. So I want to come to the to understanding of pain and suffering as ethereal, the spiritual beauty, the spiritual truth, beauty, and goodness of suffering, and how it is applied in reality, in this world, in the temporal world, in our temporal bodies, and in our spiritual bodies, in our souls, and in heaven. It will be transformed there. It won't seem like suffering, and I don't know. I mean, these thoughts are coming to me. So, as you know, I'm clumping along or dragging along today. So I'm no authority. I don't have any big answers. I'm not a pipeline of wisdom by any means. I'm just sharing and wanting, though, to be God's instrument, and the instrument He chose to have me be is one with much suffering. And God is love, and God is good. Therefore, if we get into analogies and logic, therefore, ergo, suffering is not evil. And as I've said, suffering has great power and energy. And to help all of us then utilize it as prayer, even, and as blessing for others too. Take the energy and ask God to help us harness the truth, beauty, and goodness of the great energy, the positive energy of pain. And again, keep open to not just physical pain, but all types of what causes this pain or anguish or frustration or things like that. So, with which spiritual pain, spiritual suffering, I think, is the worst in as far as the most potent. But I have to change my vocabulary. Spiritual pain, spiritual suffering is the most powerful, the most potent, the most rich, the greatest gift. God bless His real presence in us, and God love you all.